What's good, everybody? Good House back at again with another video. I did a poll on TikTok not that long ago. People wanted to get tutorials or lessons from me, and I'm gonna try my best. So here we go. I did a poll on perspective or form, which is whatever people will have the most hard time understanding, and perspective one. So I'm gonna go over how I learn perspective in my own way. Hopefully, this helps you. Uh, again, I'm not like the most fundamental person ever, but this is how I learned it, and this is what I use to improve my art. So hopefully this helps you out. First things first, we're gonna start off with first point perspective. With first point perspective, you know you have yourself the horizon line and the vanishing point, and you want your lines to head towards the vanishing point. I like to freehand it. I don't want to, try to make them look too stiff because they end up looking very sterile and very like weird. So I think just doing it freehand works a lot. It also helps train you to do straighter lines or have your lines just kind of leading to the vanishing point in an accurate way. um I think it gives it that nice organic feel of like someone drew this instead of shift clicking to the vanishing point. My recommendation is to do 10 boxes of these in first point perspective, and make them into varying sizes, thin, thick, wide, what have you. Any one of those would work. Just make sure you can get at least 10 boxes in there. And yeah, it's that easy. Moving on to 2 point perspective. Again, you just want to follow the grid. You can see where I lay my boxes or my lines. They're kind of matching up and lining up with the perspective grid that's already displayed. I have it very loose because having way too many lines for a perspective grid is kind of way too much. It's overbearing, and it's like really hard on the eyes to focus and understand like where your lines are going. So I like to just keep my grid as loose as possible, so I have like a general idea of where my lines are going. Now, a lot of these are going to be perfect. It's okay. I'm not aiming for perfection here. I'm aiming for understanding of how I should illustrate any object that has a vanishing point. Again, going over this assignment of 2 point, just trying to fill up at least 10 boxes. Not all of them are going to be amazing. A lot of them is going to look kind of wonky, but that's okay. We're learning. We're learning together. This time I'm using 3 point perspective, and I have a vanishing point that's way up top. So I'm trying to also illustrate how far up it's going. Like you're looking up at the boxes because our horizon line is very low, and the vanishing points are indicated there of like where you see the edges or the corners of the box matching up to. The third point is way above, so you cannot really see where the lines are going to essentially, but I am still following that grid. Hopefully, this doesn't lose you. You don't have to use 3 point perspective often. I rarely use 3 point perspective with all my illustrations. I think 1 point and 2 point is good enough, especially for like, I don't know, animation sometimes, or even drawing for comics or webtoons or what have you. After having those 10 boxes done, the next thing that really helped me understand shape and form and even objects in perspective is doing cutouts, like cutting out shapes or even adding geometric shapes to your floating boxes. You can add ellipses, cylinders, whatever you want to do. You can even make up random shapes just as long as they all match up to the perspective. So that's something that I really stand behind. I use this website here to grab some more perspective grids and add it to a canvas, or just help showing other people like how I use the perspective grids for the website. I'll have the link for the website in the description below. Again, I'm just cutting around and I'm just doing my best to make my own shapes to have them fit. I had a special guest come in. His name is Redo Arts. He was also practicing along with me, and he had the art click. He was like, "Oh, okay, now things are making sense." Because perspective is something that we all kind of like stray away from. But this is a homework assignment essentially. So screen cap that and go over it. If you go to my Discord, I have the homework set up there as well. Here is another example of how I would use perspective in my illustrations. Normally, you would understand that for your illustrations to have depth, you need a foreground, midground, and background. And how you can use these cubes to actually draw people in there. It's a terrible example, but I'm moving away from that and just gonna draw like I normally would. So I have a character here sitting in the foreground, right? And I'm just drawing from the top of my head. I don't know what I'm doing, but the FG is supposed to signify foreground, and anything ahead of that is the midground. So I made like a villain or whatever. I'm just drawing, I'm just sketching, I'm just doodling around just to show you guys how to use a perspective grid in an illustration. So I have my character sitting here in the midground. I want to add some tall buildings, and again, I just use those blocks, just drawing cubes. And if I wanted to make them interesting, I would add in some extra geometric forms to them, and then continue on with that process. You can extrude, or you can add shapes, you can subtract shapes. That's what the whole exercise is for. So whenever it comes to you like just drawing from other examples, you'll have an idea of how you can like make your buildings as rough as possible. And I have my background here where it's like mountains, and you see the moon or a sun and some clouds, and to really signify that, you know, this is the foreground. Oh yeah, foreground, midground. I gotta put foreground twice, I just see that. But I'm going to layer them, and whatever is closer to the camera is going to come out looking darker. So there goes my darker figure, and my midground's there, and my background is very light. So that's how you can tell things apart. Another way of understanding this entire process of perspective is also studying from other people's artwork. Here I grabbed 3 examples, and I find out where the horizon line is, and then I try to map out the perspective on that and try to understand where the characters and objects, where their perspective is lying on. Here, like another room where you can discover the perspective grid is like aligned with the door, and it's 2-point, because you can see the characters on the sides. The second grid you're not going to be able to see, but it's nonetheless 2-point. I think this is a great exercise. If you want to understand perspective, start studying from other people's artwork, especially the ones that you think that looks really, really cool, or you think, or your favorite artist, you know, just study from them and try to understand their process secondhand. You know, just imagine yourself as you're that artist, and you're drawing along with them. Another great practice is also grabbing photo references of like environments, cities, or whatever. Just try to find the horizon line and try to map out the perspective grid on that, and seeing how everything just lines up. This also helped me out a lot when I was trying to learn perspective. It was something that my mentor also got me to do. When it comes to understanding shapes, I like to also look at other artists and try to draw reference or an inspiration from stuff that I like. I really like the art of Blizzard. I like the Overwatch character designs and their shape languages when it comes to drawing their tech and stuff. So I would go over the characters' accessories or whatever and try to understand what makes that shape. You can always break that shape down into like a very simple square and start cutting it out, or you can just trace over it. That's something that I do a lot now, especially since I'm at this point in my art journey. The only thing that's missing, in my opinion, is my visual library. Here's another example of how you can cut away shapes using a ellipse, and you can just see how I started building up from everything. It wasn't that I just drew the details on and that's how it was. I took a regular basic shape and I started cutting away and started adding more form and adding more dimensions to it. Here's another example here that Redo took whatever I just said earlier in my stream and he ran with it. And this, he like unlocked Ultra Instinct for himself, which was really great and very inspirational. Now like he understands that he can just use basic shapes, and understanding just a little bit more of perspective, how you can add edges and add curves and add little points of interest to his weapon here that he's illustrating that he never have done before. He always like just kind of drew it out like without even thinking. Now he's like understanding that he can just build them up from simple shapes. And yeah, was the entire stream of Saturday and Sunday. We were just sketching around, doodling, and playing around with perspective grids and playing around with different other methods of drawing. I still haven't drawn anything for myself because I still got commissions and stuff to get through. But once I'm done with that, I'll be able to go into more detail on how to improve, like the way how I improved. Hopefully this stuff like really helps you guys. I really want you guys to understand like this is not a foreign concept that is like incredibly hard that no one can understand, and only the very few bright individuals can understand it. Redo here has never used perspective grids, and just in my hour-and-a-half stream that I had, he's able to draw his characters and have them fit in a perspective grid, and you know, it looks good. It looks cool. Like, put a 1 in the chat if you think it looks cool. I use perspective grids now a lot more often, just for even thumbnails, whatever, just to practice. And this helps out so much. If you're really trying to understand perspective and how to understand how to use these grids, start using them in your thumbnails. Start using them whenever you're just doodling around. Just make a random selection of like a perspective grid or something like that, and just try to see what you can do and what type of fun stuff you can illustrate with them. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. I be streaming on Twitch Saturday and Sundays, and we're just gonna do a Learn With Me stream. So I think next week is gonna be Form. So see you guys there.